All right. So good morning. Lama Tom, would you please give us a little Dharma talk this morning?
Sure, and I hope that this will be short. What I really wish today is, first of all, to say Happy New Year to everybody. It's a real privilege and a pleasure to be able to talk to you. What I have today is not really a Dharma talk. It's more in the form of a hope. And my hope is very simple. My hope is that in the coming year, you and I are inseparable from the two bodhicittas. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute, but I want to take a step back and sort of describe what it's like to begin as a Dharma student in the West. We all began, well, I won't say all of us, most of us began our Dharma journey, our trip into Buddhism, with a strong sense of our own suffering. In many countries, Buddhism is a part of the culture. And so practice is something almost culturally embedded in people. But with us, we have a slightly different beginning. Most of us began feeling a certain amount of our own suffering. We felt that very acutely. And so we came with that sort of approach that I feel the suffering and I want to get rid of it. And that was a strong feeling that we had. It wasn't a cultural experience. It was a feeling we had in our very bones. It's something that we felt very deeply. And as we looked around, we saw people suffering in horrible ways, killing one another, slaughtering, exploiting one another. And even when that wasn't occurring, what we saw was that you and I, were tormenting each other with our kleshas and our karma. We've done that quite a bit. And so we came to practice, really, to Dharma out of our own trauma. And we practiced out of that distress, wanting to end our particular suffering. And that was where we began. But you and I have advanced a bit, and we see that all beings suffer, that we're not different from anybody else, that we're interdependent. And our tradition and our teachers have given us a further instruction that in the bigger, vaster perspective of time, that vast perspective of time, at one time or another, we've all been each other's mothers. And so we begin to practice not just for ourselves, but we practice with an affection. I love that word. And it means a great deal in the context of this little talk. We have gained an affection for one another. And therefore, we, in our practice, are extending our love and compassion, not just to ourselves, but to all beings. And this is expressed in the two bodhicittas. This affection that we have for one another in our practice is the first bodhicitta. They call it the relative bodhicitta. That's one aspect that I hope we can carry into the new year. There's another aspect to bodhicitta, and it's the wisdom aspect. It's ultimate bodhicitta. And it's the mind that has realized things as they really are. Someone put it this way: we are not seduced by the allure of appearances. Let me give you an example of that. Last night I was driving to Kroger's. I was getting some milk and eggs for today. And I saw all these beautiful lights on either side of the road. And as I was driving along, I just got seduced by them. Oh, wow, these are so beautiful. And they were. But when I finally sort of woke up, I realized I was way off the path getting to Kroger's. So the allure of those appearances got me off track pretty badly too, I have to say. So ultimate bodhicitta helps us not get seduced by the appearances in life. Appearances are trying to seduce us into thinking they are solid, real, and substantial. And ultimately, we know that's not the case, that they are, in fact, empty. So our practice is built on the solid foundation of our affection for one another, for sentient beings. And it is seasoned by ultimate bodhicitta, which knows how things really are. These are the two bodhicittas. There's a couple of lines that I wanted to refer to from masters that have spoken about this. And so I'm just going to directly use those words. The first one is from Saraha, and he says, "Those who remain in emptiness without any compassion do not discover the sublime path." In other words, if we don't know how things really are, we're not on the path. On the other hand, he says, "Yet those who only meditate on compassion never attain liberation from samsara." So if we don't think about how things really are, we can easily be seduced by the allure of appearances. And then another time, Saraha says, "In the non-judgmental sphere of realization," that's a lot of words there. So basically, when we see things as they really are without our biases of like and dislike. So in the non-judgmental realm of realization, tears flow naturally from the overwhelming compassion when the misery of ignorant beings is so clear. And then he says, "Switch places with others," Du Tong Lin. And then he says, very practically, "Do what is useful." Those are Saraha's words. Nagarjuna has another saying, and I love this. It's very poetic. He says, "Furthermore, in this context, while the radiance of your affection, the brilliant light of your affection, that cannot bear the suffering of sentient beings is unceasing, you are aware that its essence or nature is emptiness. It does not exist as anything at all. That is said to be the unification of emptiness and compassion, or bodhicitta, that is emptiness imbued with the heart of compassion." Further, he says, "Whenever the mind meditates on the inseparability of emptiness and compassion, that is the teaching of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha." So, to put it in very simple terms, what I wish for all of us in the coming year is that we grow in affection for one another, and in particular for those that we right now might not have a great deal of affection for, those that irritate us, those that bother us. But we have affection for all. And particularly at this time, the Sangha, virtual, and those that will gather again in the near future at the center. Both the virtual and the Sangha that is about to assemble. That we have that affection for one another, the first bodhicitta. And the second hope that I have is that you and I increase our wisdom so that really we come to understand things as they really are. And in that process of growing in affection and wisdom, my hope is that you and I can be useful to all those around us because we have this affection and because we have this wisdom. I believe that's the only way we'll make progress, is by growing in our affection and growing in our wisdom, and that's through our meditation and our practice. So again, my hope for you and my hope for myself is that we are inseparable from the two bodhicittas. Thank you.